Today we're talking Gen 3 manual boosted applications. How you guys doing? This is Alex, and today we're going to talk about Gen 3 manual boosted Mustangs. In 2018, Ford introduced the Gen 3 Mustang. Biggest differences was obviously a revised body, 12-to-1 compression on the motor, the introduction of direct injection supplementing the port injection, and a new transmission called the D4 MT82. Now the MT82 in Gen 3 had a, let's just say, numerically lower gear ratio. First gear was vastly different than the Gen 1 and Gen 2, which made the car feel generally slower. But an 11-second quarter-mile time bone stock was not out of the realm of possibility. If you knew how to drive the car and you had a tire on it, you can bust off an 11.9 on a stock Gen 3. So today we're going to talk about 10s, 9s, and 8s. So the best way to get into the 10s on this Gen 3, to be honest with you, is going to be a couple of things. You can either go the naturally aspirated route, or you can just shove 8 to 10 pounds of boost in the car, and there's your 10-second slip. Stock clutch, stock transmission, stock drive shaft, stock rear end, stock everything. You can opt for a Odin, Loki, Whipple, E-Force, Paxton, ESS, or a Vortex supercharger. It did not matter. You can pretty much have a 2.0 60-foot time and still be able to run a 1090, because with 10 pounds of boost, with 12-to-1 compression on the D4 MT82 with 373s, understand this, guys, the D4 MT82's gear ratio would really benefit from a numerically higher rear gear ratio. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to shove a 4.09 or a 4.56 gear ratio in the differential. So to get into the 10s, you're going to need at least a 373, 10 pounds of boost. Choose your boost. It could be an LU47 injector because you have the DI supplementing the fuel system, a booster pump, and you're pretty much off and running. 10 seconds in the quarter mile is as easy as 9 to 10 psi, LU47 injector, a boosted pump just in case, and everything else being bone stock. In Gen 3, Ford did a really good job of making this car, let's just say, have an aggressive tune out of the box, and you didn't need much to get into the 10s. Now, let's get into the 9s. Before we get into the 9s, we need to address the elephant in the room, the transmission. So, previous generation MT82s had weak gears. They also had weak forks. Luckily, Ben Calamer got to work and made the Gen 1 and Gen 2 MT82 super reliable with his Stage 1, Stage 2, and the ultimate Stage 3 package, which is a G-force gear set, billet shift forks, you name it, everything is done. In my opinion, if you're going to go play with an MT82 on Gen 1 and Gen 2, just get a Stage 3 Ben Calamer. If you're going to go T56, it's going to be more expensive. You need a new drive shaft, new clutch, new shifter, new cross member. With a Ben Calamer Stage 3 MT82, literally a clutch is all you need. That was different because of the different amount of splines in the input shaft. So on the Gen 3, what was the weak link? Believe it or not, it was mostly the fork. The gears were robust. They had a similar gear ratio to, say, like a 2011 to 2012 TR6060 in a GT500. And the car felt like it had really long gears, NA, but with boost, it changed everything. So Ben Calamer got to work and immediately came up with a Stage 2 option. I famously got caught breaking the shift forks on my Gen 3 Mustang on a video. And there it is. There it is. Broken forks. Brandy new. So let's go into first. Goes into gear, no problem. You actually take the clutch out. Car moves. But you go into third. Put it in third, let out the clutch. Look at that. 3-4, clutch out. Nothing there. Unbelievable. So I guess it's true. Everything everyone said online for the first time
is true. The shift forks are very weak in stock form in this car, and I'm glad I caught it on video, because a lot of people say, well, was he shifting like a goon? Well, the video will show you that I was shifting just like I was shifting on the previous video. So in order to get home, I gotta go 1, 2, 5. Let's get going. 1, 2, and there's no 3, 4, so I gotta go 5th. Okay, there's 5th.
So Ben Callender got right to work. He said, Alex, I got some billet shift forks, and I'm gonna include them in my stage 2 transmission. Now, for I wanna say 80% of you, all you need is a stage 2 transmission. You don't need a stage 3. But again, if you're gonna go racing and the price difference is $900 to $1,000, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in today's money, not really. Just get a stage 3. Just get a stage 3, don't mess around, get after it. You're gonna need a clutch because it has different input shaft, and it has a G-force gear set, and he has a custom gear ratio that you're gonna have to tell your tuner about. Tell your tuner, I have a stage 3 Ben Callender transmission, so please make a tune for that. And remember, tell your tuner that reverse is different. If not, if you put it in reverse, the car will shut off because it needs to know the gear ratio on the transmission in the tune. So, TENS is literally a tire and boost. And you don't even need a drive shaft, because I've proven that you can go 60 to 130 in the low 6s with about, let's say, 700 rear wheel horsepower, which is extremely plenty to go 10s in the quarter mile. Now 9s is going to require clutch dumping. There is no slipper style clutch for the MT82, meaning like a Black Magic or a long arm style clutch for an MT82 yet. I think eventually, if Ben Callender has his way, some of the clutch manufacturers will come around and start offering that clutch to that transmission, because the stage 3 MT82 is pretty robust. So in order to get to the 9s, we need to dump the clutch. We need to and everything else needs to survive. So as always, just like Gen 1 and Gen 2, if we want to go 9s, we've got to make north of 700 rear wheel horsepower. Now, in my opinion, it's not worth it to risk it on the stock pump and a BAP and race gas. I know I'll prove to a lot of you guys that you can make 800 rear wheel horsepower on a stock fuel pump with a dense fuel and a 1000cc injector. I really don't recommend you do that, because as you saw in my video, fuel pressure dropped big time. A lot of people would say, but what about the DI, Alex? Doesn't the DI supplement? At wide open throttle, the DI is not supplementing anything. At idle and some emissions conditions, the DI comes into play. So let's go 9s. Axles, you're gonna need axles, like a set of G-force axles or something similar, DSS or whoever manufacturer you choose to go with. You need axles. The stock axles on Gen 2 and Gen 3 don't survive long, especially on a manual Mustang. You need a drive shaft. Now, you can choose your drive shaft manufacturer. I'm an aluminum drive shaft guy. I'm not a big fan of carbon fiber drive shafts, only for the reason that you are shocking everything back there. So if you're shocking something, I don't think carbon fiber loves to get shocked. I think aluminum, DSS or G-force or PTSD, PST, whatever, you can go with one of those and you'll be fine. Clutch, you're gonna need a clutch. The stock clutch pretty much gives up the ghost at about 700 horsepower. Every single time I've had a stock clutch on anything that makes 650 and up, and you have grip, the clutch says bye-bye. In my opinion, Mantic is one of the better clutches out there. I really love the Mantic clutch. I've never really had any complaints about the Mantic clutch. There are other clutches like Vengeance and others that are coming into the fray when it comes to the MT82. So you can go ahead and do your research there, but you need a clutch. Shifter you don't really need. That all depends on basically the feel of the driver. So shifter, in my opinion, you don't need, but if you're gonna get a shifter, you're gonna get yourself a Barton Hybrid 3, end of story. Now, power adder. You need to make about 700 to 800 rear wheel horsepower, high 700s, because on a stick shift car, you need more power to achieve a better ET. Automatics have the benefit of the torque converter, torque multiplication, planetaries, just a bunch of weird magic that happens in the transmission that transfers more torque. On a stick, you need more horsepower to achieve a similar ET. So you're gonna need about high 700 or so rear wheel horsepower to get this car into the 9s. Now, if you see a lot of these guys out there that are running an ESS kit, ProCharger, or Vortec, they're leaving off a 2-step. So if you're going to use a centrifugal supercharger, you're going to need a 2-step. Why is that? You need to get the RPMs high. You need to make sure there's a fuse, meaning something to take the brunt of the load during the launch. That's going to be the tire. As always, 28, 11, 17 Hoosier QuickTime Pro. Now, there aren't really that many options. I wish that on the bias ply front with S550 that there were more bias ply options, but they're only options when it's a 15-inch tire, not a 17-inch tire. I wish that would change, but as it stands, Hoosier seems to be the only tire that I would recommend. Hoosier QuickTime Pro, 28 by 11 by 17. Get it back there. So we got drive shaft, axles, tire, clutch, boost. Choose your boost, whether it is any centrifugal, a positive displacement supercharger at about 14 psi, E-Force, Odin, not the Loki. The Loki's a stock throttle body. To me, that supercharger shouldn't even exist, but whatever. Whipple with like a 3.6 or 3.5 pulley. You're going to need a 1000cc injector, which is a FIC 1000, ID 1050X, D-Twerk 95. FIC is going to be coming out with a new revised 1200 that I have really high hopes for, so be on the lookout for that. 4 Innovations fuel system. Now, there's been a lot of controversy with 4 Innovations fuel systems that I want to mention here. If you're going to buy a fuel system, don't skimp on the pumps. Please, for the love of God, get yourself 2 285 pumps if it's a dual system. If it's a triple system, get 3 285 pumps. I think they make a 295 now, but I think that's overkill. 285 pumps should be the standard. Don't even opt for the 274 or anything else. Get yourself a 285 or a set of 285 pumps. Dash 8, rails, regulator, DI, you don't have to, you can regulate it down to 60 psi, no boost reference. You don't need to boost reference to DI. And on the port side, you at idle should set your regulator between 45 and 50 psi with a boost reference on the regulator. And then you're gonna choose your octane E85. Again, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to achieve that number. So again, 10s, 10 psi, a tire, and you're done. 9s, clutch, drive shaft, axles, a tire, potentially a built transmission, because now you're dealing with big boy stuff that has at least billet shift forks, which is at least a Ben Calmer stage 2. But for the money, get the stage 3, aftermarket clutch, Vengeance, Mantic, you name it. We're gonna need boost. We're gonna need at least 14 psi. Choose your boost. Obviously, headers are something that you really should consider. I always say ultimate header. Now, 8s. I don't know anybody that has gone 8s stick Gen 3. A lot of people do this. The moment they go 9s, they go, well, I make enough power that with an auto, it immediately cuts down the quarter mile time from, let's say, 970 to like 930. And they go, well, I'm just gonna go auto, so they buy a turbo 400 and they're done. But then that makes the car less usable. It's just a drag car at this point, or a roll car. So in my opinion, in order to go 8s, you need to get serious, like super serious. We're talking T56. Now the reason I say T56 is because the amount of power needed to go 8s on a Gen 2 or Gen 3 Mustang is well over 1,000. Well over 1,000. So you could get away with the stock motor as long as you make the following changes, depending on your boost. If you're gonna go positive displacement, Whipple, Odin, or a big centrifugal like a V7 or an ESS G4, in my opinion, you should put studs in that motor, right? So you put head studs, just to make sure that the amount of boost you're shoving through it keeps the gasket sealed up. If you're gonna go turbo, like a Hellion kit, On 3, Aldo welds, or anything like that, you should also opt for valve springs. Typically, with a lot of these kits, the valve springs have a tough time keeping the combustion at bay, especially at higher RPMs, so they tend to get weak, and you tend to have what we call valve float. So in my opinion, you take this Gen 3 motor, the stock motor, I know a lot of people get fancy with built motors, but the stock motor, and you put studs, and springs. And I'm telling you, for the amount of money that built motors cost, I'd keep stuffing stock motors in these cars. Because you're not going to go 8s competitively, meaning you're not going to enter a race like a TX2K or FL2K and competitively race a stock motor. That's crazy. So, but you're going to be a weekend warrior, which is most of us. So the stock motor is fine. Studs, springs, and no porting, no nothing. Stock cams. I never, ever, ever tell anybody to put aftermarket cams in any generation Coyote because you simply don't need it at that power level. You understand? 1500 and up, sure, you can benefit from that. So 8s, we're gonna need a T56 and all the stuff you needed to go 9s. Axles, clutch, drive shaft, a Hoosier QuickTime Pro, and you definitely need to work on the launch because this car needs to cut a 1.3 something to go 8s. So the amount of shock to the system that is going to require to get this car out of the hole, well, the T56, I still wouldn't consider a Black Magic or long arm style clutch. I still think you can get away with like a McLeod 1200 HD or something, a Romantic triple, or even an RPS clutch, based on what Fat House Fab has done with their stick shift GT350. I think you can get into the 8s, making about 1,000 or 1,100 wheel. The car has to be light, so you're gonna have to do some obvious weight modifications to the vehicle. Couple of Kirkies, get rid of the back seat, but not king gut. I think about 1,000 horsepower, T56, and all the drive-like components you needed to run 9s should get you into the 8s on a glory pass. Again, not competitively, but on a glory pass, I think you can do it. Hopefully this very generic guide gives you an idea what it takes to run 10s, 9s, 8s in a Gen 3 Mustang. Oh, by the way, if you're gonna do this on an 8-second run, you're gonna need at least a 1300cc injector, or FIC 1440, FIC 1650, or ID 1700X. Understand that. Fuel system, big injector, well over 20 pounds of boost. So if it's a Whipple, it's like a 3.0 pulley and a 20%. Twin turbo, 20 PSI, ESS, 95 millimeter pulley and maybe a 10%. And Vortec and ProCharger have their pulley combos also. So just giving you a very generic guide as to what it takes to run 10s, 9s, 8s in a Gen 3 Mustang. Thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you later.